Episode 347, 48.
I thought we were 350. Wasn't it 49 yesterday or the
I
day
don't
before?
know.
Uh,
Time is irrelevant. Numbers mean nothing.
Star date 2737.4.
So I'm your host, Blain and I'm joined by my co-host, Treg Wilson.
Lift heavy. That's all I'm saying.
Meal prep.
That's all I'm saying.
Always meal prep. Got to make sure that food's
Know
clean.
your macros. Say your prayers, eat your vitamins.
All right. Well, unfortunately, Matt Smith cannot be with us because apparently he's working.
I think he has a woman.
Or several.
That's I'm working on
I
the
think he's
second half of the lift heavy.
yes. He's doing his OnlyFans. Not making enough money on the podcasts.
He's the original OF.
Yeah, well, sadly he's not here either way. So you guys who are going to be watching have to stare at our ugly faces. Those who are listening, well, you're better off. It's true.
I think that's why we have more people who listen to us on Spotify than watch us on YouTube.
Very likely. Very likely. But anyhow, it is just yet another week of no hockey for the Canadians as we are in the off season. But the playoffs are still continuing, and I believe that it snowed in hell because the Maple Leafs finally won a series.
It's about damn time.
It
Lizzo
is.
wrote a song about this.
And oddly enough, another team is out of the playoffs after having a 3-1 series lead. Boston Bruins have been eliminated.
Yeah, the greatest team to ever be assembled, according to their records, with the most wins and most points in a season, out of the first round. Now, the team they beat for those records was not put out in the first round when they went to playoffs. They went all the way and won a cup. So I don't know what to tell you.
Well, before I jump onto that one, I want to point out that the running gag of it was 3-1 is now useful for two rivals.
True. It's true. Yeah.
So I think black shirts with yellow writing, it was 3-1. Perfect. White with blue writing, it was 3-1. Perfect. It fits. It works. Consistency
Question though,
is, I love it. Yeah.
who do you root for now in the Toronto Florida game?
The refs.
Oh, well, just ask any Toronto fan. The refs are totally against them.
That's why they
Talking to you, Jim Little, even
lost.
though I know you don't listen to this podcast. I seen what you put on Facebook. Oh, the
That,
refs.
that must be why they lost, right?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
And
Uh,
I answered, I said, just like what every fan of every team says about every other team.
yes, because only one team matters, and
Yeah.
that's TS. I mean, Toronto.
Well,
Yeah.
speaking of sports, TSN Sportsnet, let's go with Sportsnet. How is Chris Cuthbert and Craig Simpson going to do play-by-play in Florida if they are not allowing any Toronto fans into the arena?
That's a good point. Uh, oh, I know. They get ESPN, their sister station, to buy the tickets for them.
But then Bissonnette can't go in because he's a huge Toronto fan.
It's true. It's true. Poor Paul.
So many of these people can't go in there. Like I don't.
See,
You know what?
Biz can get Ryan Whitney to buy it.
True. Our old buddy, Muddy, Brian Mudrick's going to have to call the game. It's just the way it is.
I mean, I You can't pick a better a person for it.
No, him and Dave Poulin, or him and Sergio Momesso.
Oh.
At least they'd get
no,
an
no,
unbiased call on the game.
better. Guest color commentator Daniel Alfredson.
Ooh,
Ooh.
yeah.
If you're gonna troll hard.
Corey Perry and Daniel Alfredson doing play-by-play.
Yeah, I can hear the call-ins for the show after the game with Matt Sundin saying, "Hey, stop throwing my stick."
Kerry Fraser, the
special referee to tell you the rules. That wasn't a high stick. Superstars don't high stick people.
Yeah, exactly. All right. So, but back to the whole setting records and all that stuff. So, Boston set a record for the greatest regular season team to have ever played. Notice I said regular season.
That's a fact, though. They did.
Yeah. Yeah. They beat out the Detroit Red Wings, who had 62 wins, who beat out the Canadians, who had only 60, just 60. But out of those 3 60-win seasons, or 60-plus win seasons, one team was able to win the Cup there that same year.
That was Montreal, 77-78.
So if you're going to say that one of those teams is the best to have ever played, which one would you choose? The one who lost in the first round, the other one who lost in the first round, or the one that went on to win a cup in the same year?
Well, you'd have to go, if you're doing the entire season, then you'd have to say the
77-78. And I'm not saying that just to be biased. I'm saying that because they went on not only to have, at that time, the greatest regular season ever. I think they lost 8 games the entire year. But they went on to win the 12 games they needed to win the Stanley Cup at that time, because there was only 3 rounds at that time. But
that's right.
So they won. It was short. It was a shortened playoffs, which will segue into another thing I think we're going to talk about.
Yes. Yeah. So I just wanted to point out that had the Bruins won the Stanley Cup, I would gladly admit that they were the greatest team to have ever played.
For sure. And you know what? Based on their regular season, I thought the Bruins were going to at least the Eastern Conference Final, at least.
Yeah. Yeah.
However,
apparently everyone was hurt.
Well, and it was also pointed out to me, analytics hit a lot of other issues that team had. And again, I'm not shitting on analytics like I have done in the past. I'm just saying you can't use one way of looking at a game and thinking it's the end all to be all, because analytically the Bruins were incredible. They were winning. It added up, but the analytics hid other things that just weren't happening, that didn't work in the playoffs. Plus, Allmark, I guess, had a really bad injury, so they lost their top goaltender. I believe many other players were playing hurt, like most teams do in the playoffs. So, and let's be honest, who had the Bruins being?
Yeah,
like who had the Bruins really doing what they did this year? Like, we all had them maybe making the playoffs. Yeah. So let's be honest. And coaching, they decided to play Allmark when he had this debate, up 3-1. They're playing Allmark, and he supposedly had this injury that was so bad that he had him so much in pain. Yet the coach is like, yeah, go on. You got it.
Yeah. Not to mention they had the best tandem in hockey this year, and yet they still didn't use Swayman.
Jeremy Swayman has some brain farts, but his second year? This year was his second year in the NHL, maybe? So, you're up 3-1. What, this guy literally was the second best goaltender in the league. Well, I wouldn't say was, but up there to it. They had the best tandem in the league. I think the guy lost 5 games all year. Why not use him?
Yeah, exactly. He had 3 chances to close out the series. If he was that bad, you got 3 chances. You're rolling. You're up 3-1. Give it a go.
Yeah.
But no.
If he's that injured, sit him. Put Swayman in. If Swayman loses the next 2 games, well, hey, Allmark, I hope you're feeling better. Because
Yeah.
guess what?
You're going back in. But no, they didn't do that. Which brings us to a hot take that you brought to everybody's attention. So you retweeted or quote tweeted a tweet by someone named Sam McCowan. I don't know.
Never
hot
heard
take.
of him. I just saw it all
Yeah.
the time.
So his hot take, sure to rouse anger, was if the best regular season team can't advance out of the first round playoff series by winning 3 of the first 4 games, perhaps the series is just too long. And
What
your
did I say
response
again?
was, this isn't a hot take, it's a complete shit one.
Am I wrong?
No.
Like basically what he's saying is, all right, we have the best team, so we shouldn't just play any games. We should just hand them the cup. Because if we play any games and they lose, then the series is just way too long.
And next year we'll determine who's the best team by simulating the series on NHL 24. Like,
I
do you
mean,
draw the line?
okay. I will say this. Back in the 80s, the first round, when they first introduced a 4th round in the playoffs, it was a best of 5 series. And I believe that went to 86, I want to say. I think it changed in 86 to
84 or 85, somewhere around there.
When the Habs won the 86 Cup, I believe all 4 rounds were 7 games. I believe. If I remember. Because that was the first year I really started watching a lot of hockey. I watched it before, but just not as into it as I was that year. But come on. Like, really? Like, if your team was the underdog team and you won, you definitely wouldn't be saying that. I'm assuming he's a Bruins fan. I really didn't look.
Yeah, probably.
Yeah, but because really, if the best team in the league can't win when they're up 3-1, then the series is too long. Or maybe the team just shit the bed by putting an injured goalie in for 2 games that he shouldn't have been in. Did you think about that?
This is kind of the reason why you have the 7-game series. There's some strategy involved. There's a little bit of luck. There's some skill. But at the end of the day, it's who outworked who.
So here's the question. All right, let's shorten that series and make it a best of 3. Let's go baseball, right? Let's make it a best of 3, like the baseball wild card.
Sure.
All of a sudden, Florida's goalie's hot, and they win the first 2 games. Well, then your team that just was the best team in the league just went out in the first round in 2 games. You're going to turn around and say, well, they don't play enough games. I think it hurts you more to have less games because then you have less chances to close it out, right? If your team was that good when they were up 3-1, they should have closed it out in 5-6 games.
Yeah.
Right. And let's be honest, after Christmas, Florida is one of the hottest teams in the league.
Which hurts because, that does affect the draft status, and the Canadians won their draft pick.
We all thought we were getting 2 top 10 picks, and it turned out we weren't even getting anything close. But
might only be the bottom 4.
And that's why I think it's a shit take, because like you're not really thinking about it. You're only thinking about it because you're pissed off that your team lost. But if you really think about it, you cut the games down. So what if your team goes up in a best of 5, 2-1, and then loses the next 2 games? It's the same scenario.
Yeah.
It's the exact same scenario.
If you shorten the series, like you said, you're at the mercy of a hot streak. Maybe you're playing like crap for 2-3 games. You got this really great team that's been rolling, and sometimes you hit a little bit of a snag. There's 2-3 games where you're not that good. You might win one of them, but you'll lose a couple. If it's a best of 3 or a best of 5, you're done. A hot goalie,
that's right.
You're done.
And it's playoff hockey. Playoff hockey is totally different than regular season hockey. Now, you can say the refs put their whistles away more, or the refs call a different game in the playoffs. all viable arguments, all viable excuses, I guess you can say, because it's true. The refs do ref different in the playoffs than they do in the regular season. It's a given, for better or for
there's
worse.
And what if by some strange fixing the NHL trying to fix a game by putting your ex roommates, boyfriends, cousins, neighbors, schoolmates from the third grade's friend as the referee against you?
And he's a flat earther.
Unbelievable. Everybody knows it's a cube.
But I'm just saying, like, it's a shit take because A, you either don't understand hockey or you don't understand that a smaller format is worse for your team than a longer one.
Yeah.
And it is. And I think the first round should be 5 games. Personally. But because I think playoffs is just way too long.
Maybe, honestly, I was thinking about that after reading your retweet there, and I thought, what if the first round was just the wild cards doing a play-in?
Well, funny you mentioned that, Blaine, because I did mention the baseball thing for a reason, and basketball's been doing this for the 8th seed. So basketball will take, I think it's the 7th, 8th, and 9th teams, and they play like a little tournament, kind of like what baseball does, one against each other, and the top 2 teams make it into the playoffs. So if you're 9th or just out of the playoffs, you can make it in. Baseball, they take your division winners and then the 3 next best teams. 3 next best teams play a little 1-game tournament against each other, right? And the top team goes on to the next round, or however it goes. I have no issue with hockey I have no issue with hockey going to 24-man playoffs. We have 32 goddamn teams, right? Only half of them make the playoffs. I have no issue with the way it is now. Yeah. I have no issue with the way it is now, but I would have no issue if it went to, say, 20 or 24 either.
I like the fact that it's only 16. It kind of lessens the number of teams that can make it, and it kind of keeps it from being diluted. Playoff hockey, you want to see the better teams anyway. But if you went with the wild cards only playing in that first round and giving a bye to the other 3, first will play the wild card, second will play 3, and there you go.
And then you don't have teams like Colorado, although I'm not sure what Colorado finished this year. I don't think they won their division.
No, they were in the middle of the pack there.
Yeah. I think they were top 3 in the division, but I don't think they won it. But it would avoid teams like Boston going out in the first round, or if Toronto won the division, they wouldn't go out in the first round because, you would have your wild card teams playing off, and then the winner would play the best of the 3 teams, the 3 division teams. So
no, Colorado did win their division.
Oh, did they? Okay. Well, there you go. So then they would get a bye. So you wouldn't have these 2 teams that played so hard in the regular season going out in the first round. I have no issue with that. I have no issue with going 1 for 8. I have no issue with that either. Hell, let's go 1 versus 16. Let's get rid of the conferences altogether and go 1 through 16. Why not?
Well, they did that before, and it didn't work because of travel costs or whatever.
Oh, hey, I remember when you played 2 nights in a row, got a day off, 2 nights in a row, day off, game off, game off. And that's how you did your 7-game series. And guess what? It was the whole series was over in 10 days.
And it's fair because you have the exact same schedule as the other team. You're traveling the same amount of distance. Everything's even. It's unfair, but it's fair.
A couple years ago, before COVID, you would have, Montreal's playing Boston tonight. Then they don't play for another 4 days or something stupid like that. And you're like, what the hell?
Because there's some kind of a friggin' circus going on in Boston, or the Celtics have a game, or who knows what the hell's going on.
TV. Fucking dynasty reunions on that night. We can't have a hockey game. We'll lose viewers.
You need that NBC Sunday afternoon game.
Yes, playoff game. Anyway,
Yeah. But this year, had they gone with the wild cards playing only as a first round and given a bye to the others, we would have seen the Islanders play the Panthers and the Kraken play against the Jets. I think that'd be two really good series.
would be. I still think you'd have the Kraken and the Panthers coming out on top, but you never know.
But here's the thing: Vegas would end up playing Seattle in that next round, and Colorado would end up playing against LA. It changes things up a little bit, and it gives the teams that fully qualify, those top three teams per division, gives them a break.
But don't you only have? Yeah, but then you have 7 teams going to the next round.
Give another bye to the top team in the conference. There you go, done. Problem solved.
You know what I'm saying though? Like you have a.
Because you got to make sure. You got to make sure Boston keeps getting further and further in.
Although I don't mind that idea, but here's how you do it: you add 2 more wild card teams, and then you have 2 teams advancing per conference. So you still have 8 teams going in. It actually just adds another round. We just made it longer.
But you make the wild cards play the extra round, whereas everybody else doesn't.
Yes, that's right. Everybody else does not. Yeah. I don't know. I personally think playoffs is too long. I don't like having hockey in June. Call me old school, but especially when the season pretty much starts in September, right?
Yeah.
So I call me either shorten the regular season or shorten the playoffs. One or the other. Doesn't really matter.
Yeah,
and then they're talking about expansion. I think expansion is stupid because you're only going to dilute the league. The league's just starting now to get back to where you have 8 or 9 guys with 100 points and multiple 50 goal scorers. If you throw in 2 or 3 more teams, you're just diluting the player. You're diluting the NHL from star players, in my opinion.
Screw it. Let's just make an NHL Europe.
That could work.
32 teams in Europe. Boom, done. The winner from each continent plays against each other for the Clarkson Cup.
The World Cup. Or the World Series in baseball that only American teams can play for and 1 Canadian.
And they'll cancel a season if 2 Canadian teams would have played for it.
Yeah, Toronto's nowhere near. Yankees were winning that. Yankees were way ahead.
94, baby. It was going to happen. It's going to happen.
Yankees were way ahead.
And then Major League Baseball shut it down to keep the Jays from playing the Expos, because then it would be a real World Series, and that would upset Americans who have this inferiority complex to Canadians because we're much better.
Well, I'm not going to argue that, but
see,
I will argue though
theories.
that my this year right now last place Yankees were well ahead in first place back then. Just saying.
We all have those conspiracy theories that we like to cling to, knowing full well that they're all bullshit. There's mine.
Mine is that the military is going to get the full percentage of whatever the private sector gets after their strike. That's my conspiracy theory, that they're not going to hack that 10% that they're already giving us off. Did I say that out loud on air?
Views expressed on this podcast episode are strictly Trege Wilson's and only Trege Wilson's.
Just saying. What? They got a 15% raise? We're only getting 5. Oh.
Darn it. So moving on from that conspiracy theory to the next one. The Calgary Flames, the GM quit because he wanted to fire the coach. And then suddenly 2 weeks later, they fire the coach. Sutter's gone.
Calgary, the team stopped playing for the coach long, like at Christmas, and everyone knew it. Everyone knew it, right? What Brad Trevilling, I don't know why. I don't know if Sutter had his kids held for ransom on the old Sutter farm in Viking, Alberta, or what was going on there. But he was standing by his coach, even though it was clear that he lost the room. I mean, when a reporter asked how he felt a rookie did in the lineup and he had no idea who they were talking about,
no, he did.
There's issues. Oh, I know he did. But what different? They just asked. Like, don't you know? Sutter is so old school that it's not even new. You know, it's old school that even old school didn't use. So for coaching, and you can't do that nowadays. It's and it just didn't work. I mean, Huberdeau was not the same player he was in Florida. Kadri was not the same player. He was not the same player he was in Colorado. He just held so many people back. He put them in boxes. Who else did that? Who put players in boxes when they coached them? Terrian? Every Montreal coach under Mark Bergevin. So Terrian, Julian, Ducharme, exact same person, different suit. And that's what Sutter did. And that's just not the way you coach in the NHL anymore. I'm sorry, but
no,
Daryl, you had your, hire one of his other 27 brothers. See how they do.
500 cousins.
The entire town of Viking, Alberta.
Yeah, pretty much. But on BPM Spal, French language sports talk radio in Montreal, Huberdeau was talking to a former Flames coach, Bob Hart. Was it Hartley? Yes, it was Hartley. And Hartley brought up the Jacob Pelletier thing. And Huberdeau mentioned that, the guys in the room did not like that. There was no reason for it. It made no sense to them. Why would the coach essentially mock a rookie player who just played his first NHL game? Just, give him the same bullshit answer. Say, hey, he came up. He did what we asked him to do. He looked okay.
He got pucks in deep.
Pucks in deep, 110%. Like, just some cliche. Give some bullshit cliche answer. Just don't throw the kid under the bus.
I don't know. I think Sutter's days were numbered. It was just a matter of time. Why? See, that whole I don't know. That whole thing, Trevilling wanted to fire him. The owners didn't want him fired. Then Trevilling quits. And then it's almost like in the exit meetings, players had something to say maybe. And then all of a sudden they changed their mind. That's what I think happened. I think in the exit meeting, a lot of players said, hey, we're not playing for that guy. If you think we're going to make the playoffs next year, you got another thing coming because we're just going to go out and do whatever. We're going to play for us, not for him. Which could also work. It worked for Montreal in the playoffs. But don't know. Could Bergevin go to Calgary as the GM?
It's possible.
That's 2 GM positions open now.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the smartest GMs in the NHL sitting there ready to take over.
Let's do it.
He'll hire he'll hire Trevor Timmins back as his pro scout. Hire him from Columbus.
Yeah. I don't know. I bring up the Flames because the Canadians own their first round pick from one of the next 15, 20 years, depending on the condition.
25. I think it's going to be 24, but it could be 25.
Which brings me to the point that this was a good move to kind of push the year back a little bit on the first round pick. It keeps you from stockpiling all the picks in one year, but it also kind of banks on the downfall of a team, knowing that windows close and sometimes teams just slide into oblivion. So maybe he timed it well, because the team seems to be imploding right now.
Well, I believe, if I can remember, because there's a lot, Philadelphia comes into this too, depending on how their draft goes and what pick they take from Calgary. But
Yeah.
Montreal can get the 24th pick unless it's really high up, and then they can switch it over to the 25th pick. I believe
It's in the top 5 or some shit like that.
Yeah, I believe that's the stipulation on it. I don't think it's protected. Is it protected? I don't remember. Anyway,
Only for specific.
Cap Friendly got a whole page written on it because that's how long it takes to explain the friggin' pick. Or you can go to the Hockey Writers and let's search up our author named Trege Wilson, who makes a huge big article about it. And I can't even remember what I wrote. But anyway, I think that's how it works. So yeah, if Calgary slides, that could be a 2 top picks for Montreal in the top 20 next year.
It's possible. It's very possible. So the timing of that, taking on $6.35 million for Sean Monahan. I mean, everyone was upset that he wasn't traded at the trade deadline, and that's fine. They could have gotten, had he been healthy, they could have gotten something decent. But just the fact that you took a first round pick just to take him on, it's already a win. And it looks like if the Flames do slide a bit, fall between 10 and 20 in their pick, that's a huge win.
And that's just especially, I mean, I don't think next year is going to be as deep as this year is, but I don't think it's going to be obscure like 2022 was, if that makes any sense. 2022, you could have picked anybody almost anywhere. And you weren't really. This year, the top 15's pretty much, set. But however, there's other players who are in the next 10 that are like, you know what? They're good enough. They could actually pop into that. Like, it's a very deep, deep draft.
Yes.
So, I mean, Montreal's getting Bedard and Fantelli, so it doesn't really matter.
Oh, wouldn't that be great? Would that be great? And that takes us to the draft. So the draft lottery is coming up very soon. It's going to be on the 8th of May. And Canadians right now hold number 5. Percentage-wise, they're more likely to pick 5 or 6 than they are to pick 1 or 2. And it basically, to pick number 1, it's 8.6%. To pick number 2, it's 8.8%. And you're looking at about 44% for pick number 5.
And the farthest they can fall back is 7th, I believe.
I
think they can only fall back 2 spaces.
Yeah, but more than likely they only move back 1.
Yeah, I'm just saying the farthest, the worst case scenario.
Yeah,
they pick 7th, which still isn't a bad spot to be. So I'd rather top 5. So technically, I will be right if they draft 6th or 7th, motherfuckers.
They didn't finish 5th, so technically wrong. Oh my god, it's a downward spiral.
If the draft was shortened, they would have done.
Jesus. Oh man. So let's talk about the draft a little bit. And the Canadians picking somewhere around 5 to 7. Clearly, the higher the draft, the better. Fantilli and Bedard are clear cut first, second tier. The third tier, though, which in this case is a bunch of kids who could.
Yeah. Let's take every scenario and break it down, because the first 4 are going to be easy. So if Montreal wins the draft, they get Bedard.
Yeah.
Montreal finishes 2nd, they get Fantilli.
Easy picks.
Those are all right. 3rd, Montreal ends up 3rd in the draft. They move up 2 spots.
Do you pick Michkov?
I pick Carlson.
Yeah.
We're going to talk about Michkov at every pick from now on, but he's too. It's still, even with Marashenko or whatever his name is coming over to Washington or ending his contract early. Mind you, it's not a team that's owned by the president of the country. It's a lot lesser team in the KHL that they mutually, and he was okay. He wasn't a top scorer over there or anything. I don't believe. Like someone's going to
Not
come on
really. And keep in mind too, the team that he belongs to in the NHL
is
is the Washington
Ovechkin's.
Capitals, and it's Ovechkin's team.
And Ovechkin has a lot of pull. So
Yes.
so they mutually end up, and he's going to sign with Washington. It's not going to be the same when you're playing for the top team, one of the top teams in the league, owned by someone who can make this team win every year if he really wants to.
Yeah.
Which Michkov played, and Michkov's one of the top players on the team at 18 years old.
17.
Yeah. So I will say this. It does bode well that he could play his contract out and then come over to North America, which 2 weeks ago you would say, "Ooh, I don't know. He may have to, he's so good. They might say, no, we're keeping him. Like we want him in our league. He's going to put butts in the seat. You know what I mean?" And although I think he does want to play North America, I won't get into his father's situation because he kind of said something like that. And then all of a sudden shit went down.
Yeah.
So 3, I go with Carlson. I don't know who you go with, but I go with Carlson.
It's a tough call because Carlson, he's going to play in the World Championships here coming up, and he's playing for Sweden on the men's team. It's not U18, it's not U20, it's the World Championships, and he's their number one center. So his performance in that tournament could go a long way. But you can make an argument for Will Smith to go third.
You could. But you can only make that argument because Will Smith really picked it up the last half of the season, similar to what Slafkovsky did last year in the tournaments and everything near the end of the season.
But throughout the entire season, he was outproducing guys like Jack Hughes historically. So it's not like he just suddenly found another gear and started scoring points when he was already doing that.
I agree. However, the optics look like he found another gear and started turning points, whereas Carlson was pretty consistent through the entire season. You can make an argument for Smith. I personally go with Carlson at 3. And if we want to get into 4, I would say Smith. I would say Smith or Dvorsky at 4 if Michkov doesn't go. Michkov is in every pick. Michkov is in every. You got to consider Michkov for every pick, but you're going Dvorsky or Smith for 4. I mean, if Smith doesn't go 3, he goes 4. Simple as that.
Yeah, and I know Benson's in that mix as well. The reason why I don't think
I was going to say I don't think Benson's there because of his size.
Well, maybe not for the Canadians, but for other teams.
Maybe.
So I think he might be in the mix for San Jose. He might be in the mix for.
But we're
Chicago.
talking if the Canadians are picking 4th. That's what I'm saying. Okay. We're taking if every scenario for Montreal in this lotto. So if Montreal's picking 4th, you got Carlson, Fantelli, and Bedard doesn't go first because for some reason nobody wants him. No, I'm just kidding. And Bedard goes first. So who are you taking at 4 for Montreal?
Yeah, I mean Smith is clearly the guy who would want it at 4 or 5. Carlson, I would think Carlson's ahead of him because, like I said, he's going to play first line center for the men's team, and I do believe he's going to do well in that tournament. So
you would say Carlson's going 3rd?
I think so. Before Smith, yeah.
But probably. Either way, you can flip flop them. So if Montreal's picking 3rd, Smith or Carlson, they're not going to go wrong. If they're picking 4th, Smith or Carlson, they're not going to go wrong.
Exactly.
Is that a fair statement?
Yeah, I think
so. If they pass on one and get the other, it's not really going to hurt them.
No, I mean, you look at Carlson, he's got a little bit more size, but he's played on the wing more than a center. But he is a center. Will Smith, he's not as big, but he's more dynamic offensively, and Hughes knows him from coaching him as in minor hockey. So it's all these different little things that all come together that I don't think you'll lose out by picking either one.
All right. So now we're at 5. We're at where Montreal probably is going to pick.
Yeah.
We have Smith, Carlson, Fantelli, Bedard all gone. Who are we picking at 5?
Well, at 5 now you have guys like Michkov, Benson, Dvorsky, Oliver Moore, Ryan Leonard. So these are all guys that you could pick at that point.
You haven't answered the question.
What? Who do I want?
Who would you pick? Yeah, they're all guys you can pick, but who would you pick at 5? Would you pick Michkov at 5? Is he a viable option at 5? No.
No, I think it's too risky at 5. You're in one of the deepest draft pools. You don't want to have a miss. You don't want to have a player that will never show up for whatever reason. So I would pick someone that I know would be able to come over or is already here.
So, because you know more about the prospects than I do, and I readily admit that, I'm going with Dvorsky. I'm going with Dvorsky at 5. I like Leonard and I like Benson. I just think Dvorsky is more ready. Not that he needs to play in the NHL next year, and I think he has a better skill set.
In watching Dvorsky through the World Juniors and the U18s here, he is, when he's up against his peers, he can dominate a game. He really can. In the World Juniors, the under 20 World Juniors, he was the number one center for a Slovakian team that was missing a few big pieces, and they took Canada to overtime and nearly beat them. And he was a big part of that. So I think he has got value to be picked there. And I know that the Canadiens staff do like him. But if it was me, I would be debating between him and Ryan Leonard, who's a power forward for Team USA. So if you're looking for size, they both have it. If you're looking for a scoring touch, they both have it. They both play a little bit of a power game. They can both skate well. But if you're looking for a center versus a winger, you're going to lean towards Dvorsky.
All right. So we'll say Dvorsky if Montreal picks 5, just for the sake of argument.
Sure.
So now we're at the 6. Say whatever team is 5, pick Dvorsky. We'll just say assume every team's going with Montreal's draft page because it's up on the Jumbotron. Who are you taking? So now you have. Would you say then it make a good argument Leonard would go 6 to Montreal? Or,
yeah, I would.
Or would you take Michkov after 5?
No, still not picking Michkov at this point.
I don't think Michkov goes to 9 or 10. Personally,
I think he'll go around there.
I think Arizona picks 8 or 9.
12th, I think.
Is it 12th? He won't go past Arizona.
No, God, no.
Yeah.
He's ideal for Arizona. When you think about it, ideal.
Yeah. And I don't see Washington passing on a Russian to come over and
see, that's the rub.
Play with Ovechkin or replace Ovechkin, because again, he's not going to be over here for another 3 years.
Now, I know that with the Capitals picking 8, you make a good point that they do love Russian players, but they still need centers to feed the Russian players they already have. Backstrom's getting much older, and his injuries are catching up to him. So there's guys like Oliver Moore. I mean, you could make an argument for, I don't know, Nate Danielson. You can pick these guys around there. I don't know. Actually, yeah. With Ovechkin on the team, they might have a better chance of getting Michkov to come to North America with Ovechkin's pull.
And I would believe in 3 years of Ovechkin's not playing, he'll be part of the organization somewhere, somehow.
Exactly.
So he'll have some say.
Well, let's say they don't pick him.
Oh, Washington?
Yeah. Let's say they go somewhere else.
He's gone by 12. Arizona got him at 12.
Exactly. And the reason why I think that's the drop dead, that's as far as he's going to go, is because Arizona, with their second first round pick, because they already have number 6 at this point, maybe 7. Do they pick him at that pick? Possibly. Or do they wait until 12 and pick him there? Either way, I think he's going there because they're a team still looking to tank.
Mm.
They don't need to worry about the next year or two. They don't care about that. And in about 2-3 years, they're going to have a new rink, a much better team put together because of all the prospects that they've got coming up, and a brand new UFA signing in Austin Matthews.
In either Arizona or Houston, wherever that arena will be.
Exactly. But no, yeah, I do think that he's a good fit for that organization. And you make a very good point on the Washington Capitals.
Yeah. So 6, you're going with Leonard.
Yeah, if Dvorsky's already gone, then yeah, I'd go with Leonard.
All right, I agree with Leonard. And at 7, I'd go with Benson. If Montreal's picking 7.
I'd have a hard time picking between Benson and Moore.
I was thinking Oliver Moore too, but I'm also thinking with Doc, Suzuki, Dvorak, maybe Pierre-Luc Dubois, I'd go with Benson just because he's probably going to end up playing the wing anyway. So
true, but Moore is also, he can switch to the wing, and he is an amazing skater, just unbelievable good skater. So he can play at that pace that they want him to play. He's got a little bit more size than Benson. I mean, they're both very dynamic players. They're both offensively gifted players. They're both excellent skaters, but I don't know. That's why it's a little bit, it's hard. It's hard to pick between the two.
Okay. So going back to the draft, Montreal say we'll go with Montreal picking 5. I will put money down that Montreal's going to stay at 5. I'll probably lose it, but I'll put money down anyway. Any chance Montreal goes off the board?
Goes with some. If they did, it would be for Reinbacher.
That's what I was getting at. Like, any chance they're picking 5 and Dvorsky, Leonard, Benson, Moore are all available? Is there any chance that they go, you know what? Let's take a left turn here and go pick someone no one's thinking we're going to pick. Well, Reinbacher is kind of in the talks for Montreal, but
yeah, I mean, if they were to go off script, that's who I think they would do it, because he's seen as the next Bryce. What's the name of that Detroit Red Wings defenseman? I'm trying to think of his name. No, the one that's playing right now.
Oh, Sidorov or Sider.
Yes, I was having a brain fart moment there. Moritz Sider. He's seen as the next Sider, and Reinbacher is also seen as the best defenseman in the draft this year. So they could look at it and say, well, he brings a very different element that we don't have right now. He's got the size, he's got the mobility. He could be the next game-breaking defenseman, and he's the best defenseman. So maybe we're going to get a bigger bang for a buck picking him versus someone else.
Is he right-handed?
Yeah.
For
6'2", almost 200 pounds.
Habs fans, for sure, Reinbacher at 5. You heard it here first. Right, Grant?
I think Grant McCagg believes Dvorsky and Smith are his picks for the Canadiens.
So, hand on your heart. Well, not hand on your heart. Who do you really think who do you think they're gonna pick at 5? Who, when they pick him, you're like, yeah, that's what I thought.
If Smith's there, him. If he's not there, Dvorsky.
Okay. I'm in the same boat. I think it's Dvorsky. I personally don't think Smith will be there. I think he's going to go 4th. But I think Smith or Dvorsky are the ones that are going to pick. And Michkov at 17.
Yeah. And fingers crossed, you win the lottery.
Well, that's why I wanted to go over every scenario. Like, hey,
yeah,
what if Montreal, because there was a year Montreal finished 3rd when they were like 8th or something like that. So you never know. It could happen. I mean, because the first 3 were pretty easy. But after 1 and 2, it's really good. It's really good to look at a draft that after the first 2 picks, you could argue You could take this guy or that guy, and you're really not going to lose out in this. Because you know what's going to happen. You know what's going to happen. At 5, they're going to pick one guy, and everyone's going to focus on the guy they didn't pick and go, how come that guy's doing so well on that team and our guy's playing for Laval? Or our guy should have been playing in Laval and not in Montreal or whatever.
So essentially, whatever happens, the opposite is something they say should have happened.
And that's well, it depends on how well the player plays. Let's be honest. If Slafkovsky came out and had a 40, 50-point season, nobody would be talking about Shane Wright and his 2 points in Seattle or whatever it is he got.
Well, there'd be a handful, but they'd be shushed pretty quick because of that. But if it turns out to be the Kotkaniemi Tkachuk garbage, then that's different.
I'll be honest.
Kotkaniemi had a good, solid first season, but Tkachuk also. Even though it was Zadina that everybody wanted.
I wanted Tkachuk. You're my witness to that. I wanted Tkachuk, but we all knew Kotkaniemi was going to get picked.
Yeah.
Right, what, lady? No one listens to us, man. No one. And then Pat Nadeau with your what, lady, goddamn Twitter thing that everyone thought was me because you told them.
What? No, but I want to make it clear though. Like we're not arguing. We're breaking down and looking at these players and saying maybe this guy, maybe that guy. But in your first 7, 8 picks, they're all players that could be first line players.
And that's just what I'm saying. This is what I like about where we're picking is it's not really going to matter who we pick. It's going to be a successful pick. Unless something drastic, unless an Alexander Daigle pops out of this, and you're like, where did that come from? Or I want to say what Peter Sikora wasn't that bad. It wasn't that great, but or what's his name from the 79 draft there? Wickenheiser.
The 80 draft, yeah.
Yeah. Or you're looking at Galchenyuk, the guy that got picked before Galchenyuk there from Edmonton.
Neil Yakupov.
However, there was underlying issues with Yakupov that people knew about, and that was a terrible draft.
Yeah.
Well, except for, Anyway, but this year, now, next question for you, Blaine. I kind of took control of the show here. Sure. Does whoever they pick make the NHL next year?
First year, right out of the bat?
Yeah.
I don't think so.
We said the same thing about Slafkovsky, and he made the NHL.
Well, because for me, I'm thinking it's either Dvorsky or Smith. And with Smith, I see him playing a full season in Boston before coming to the professional ranks. He'll play his first year in the NCAA. He needs a little bit more seasoning anyway, so that he can get a little bit more size to him, build up a little bit more strength. Dvorsky's already got size and strength, but he needs to refine his game. So I can see him playing junior hockey in Canada. Maybe that he could play in Laval. Kind of like what they did with Philip Meshar.
And do you think Slafkovsky plays Laval or Montreal next year?
I think he starts in Montreal, but if he's not, I don't see them being as patient with him this year as they were this past season. So if he starts not really showing much, little flashes here and there is not enough. You need to show that you're ready.
22 goals from Slafkovsky in the NHL next year. You heard it here first. I'm just making shit up.
All right. So I think that pretty much covers everything. We've rambled on for almost an hour.
This is my interview with the Hockey Writers writer Blaine Potvin. Thank you for joining the show. He is our prospect expert. We're pretty low on the expert scale here, so we just
it's in air quotes. So do you have any final thoughts?
No, not really. My final thought just is no matter where Montreal finishes in this lottery, they're going to get a good pick. So try to, when the draft day comes and they pick the guy that you wanted or didn't want, let's just hope that guy, let's support him. Let's not fight against him. Let's, for a change, support the player that the team picks, and don't sit there and be like these jackasses you're already seeing on Twitter, already tearing down the pick that hasn't even been made yet. Because they know more, because they know better, because they're on Twitter. That's why I'm on Twitter. I know more than everybody else about the Montreal Canadiens.
Absolutely. You're the Elon Musk of Habs Unfiltered.
And I have a blue check mark that I'm not paying for anymore, and I still don't know why I have it. I don't have any of the benefits of it because I can't write like a whole page or anything, so I don't know why I have it.
Just there. Yeah, and for me, I agree. I agree with the patient side. This is an organization whose management has only been in place for 18 months. Let's give them a little bit more runway before we burn them down and burn down their choices.
I mean, I think they're already doing a better job in the development and drafting part of than the last regime. You could argue Slafkovsky, sure. There's arguments to and fro on that one. But yeah, let's just be patient. Just and then in the words of Jerry Springer, be kind to each other, or whatever he says at the end of Jerry Springer.
God rest Jerry Springer. He'll be missed.
I'll never know who that transvite stripper was that I fell in love with years ago. I can only find out on the show.
It'll never happen. Maybe Steve-O. Maybe Steve-O will carry on the tradition.
No, he only does people who molest kids or something. That show's really gone off the rails.
Ooh. Good thing I don't watch that shit. Anyway, that's pretty much it for the show. There's our final thoughts, as messed up as they may be. I just want to say thank you to everybody who's still listening for some odd reason, despite all of that. But yeah, keep the emails coming. Keep interacting with us on social media. We really appreciate the community that we have been able to build up with you guys. So please, let's keep it going. We'll enjoy the summer together. And remember, if